At this particular point, Orlando Pirates should know and understand one thing, that Mamelodi Sundowns in the Betway Premiership, they are the level. They are the highest level. This is a team that regularly plays the World Cup. This is the team that regularly competes in the CAF Champions League. And they don't just play the CAF Champions League, they compete in the CAF Champions League. You find them in the quarterfinals, you find them in the semifinals, you find them in the final the same way as last season. They've been unlucky not to win it more than once. But Orlando Pirates, in this match, they must have learned one lesson. Mamelodi Sundowns is the level. And like I said, Mamelodi Sundowns went into this fixture as the underdogs because of they haven't been consistent with the result. Unlike Orlando Pirates, who have been consistent, Mamelodi Sundowns have been drawing a lot of matches when you compare them to Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates only lost 2 matches and played about 2 draws, whereas Sundowns played 5 draws and lost 1 match coming into this fixture. But right now, Orlando Pirates find themselves losing a third match in the Betway Premiership. But hey, I digress. So let's get into the match. And Orlando Pirates did play their own game. Sundowns did play their own game. In the first half, you will argue that Sundowns played well, although Orlando Pirates got their chances. And the difference is that Mamelodi Sundowns was clinical, whereas Orlando Pirates were not very clinical. And shout out to Ronan Williams again. It's matches like this where Ronan Williams prove people like us who love South African football, who follow South African football, who reminds us that he is South Africa's best goalkeeper and undisputed, Those 2 saves, very important saves that he made, and he saved them. Mamelodi Sundowns played well. Orlando Pirates played well. The difference between this match, the other team was clinical, the others was not. Orlando Pirates could have scored about 4 goals, but they couldn't. Butuma should have and could have scored 3 goals, but as a young striker who's still growing, he's not clinical. He needs to be clinical to play at a very high level. He needs to learn from a player like Brayan Leon. What a gem. Mamelodi Sundowns have a gem in Brayan Leon. And you can see, a developed player, a very developed player. These South American players that Mamelodi Sundowns normally bring to their team, they are very developed. You can see that the Brayan Leon, he sort of has the basics for a striker. He sort of has a basics for a player who play as a central forward. He has those basics of, I get 1 chance, I score 1 goal. I don't need 7 chances to score 2 goals. He only need 2 chances to score 2 goals. Unlike on the other end, Yanela Butuma got a lot of chances, couldn't even score a goal. But yeah, both of these teams had a great game. Both of these teams could have scored more goals than this. But what I like, and I always emphasize about this fixture is that we are guaranteed goals when these 2 teams play. Whoever wins, but you know that at least we will get more than 1 goal in this match. And an unsung hero or a hero in Mamelodi Sundowns currently, who doesn't really get his flowers enough, it has to be Jaden Adams. Jaden Adams' performance has been great, and I feel like we don't give the man his flowers. Teboho Mokoena was also good, as you could have expected when it comes to Mamelodi Sundowns versus Orlando Pirates. Teboho Mokoena is always gonna be in the middle of the park fighting Makalini Makaula, and then you will have Sela Mudau fighting Relebule Mokoena, ensuring that Relebule Mokoena today doesn't have a shot on goal, doesn't have any assist, thanks to Sela Mudau. And you have Grant Kekana, who also had an amazing game. Ndamane was overloaded. A lot of pressure was coming into Ndamane, but he was composed, he was relaxed, and I think he played well. And Tembazwani came in, didn't really do much, but the substitute from Miguel Cardoso was a game management substitute, unlike Abdel Somwadu, who just made substitute because he was under pressure. Taking off Maswagenga, you could see the man. You could see Abdel Samwadou was really feeling the pressure from the bench, and he wanted that second goal. Unlike for him and Maswangai, great goal, deflection, And those two goals by Brayan Leon, very, very great goals. Oh, I can't stress enough that Mamelodi Sundowns in Brayan Leon, they find a gem, man. Like they find a gem. Another player who I think had an amazing game has to be Tapelo Morena. Tapelo Morena was just there in that defense, operating and silently so, you know. He's one of those players in this fixture who his performance wasn't screaming, but he was doing enough. You know, I think for Mamelodi Sundowns, the player that I will argue that lacked it has to be Nuno Santos. Nuno Santos in this match was a player who he was very quiet. He did okay, but he was very quiet for a Nuno Santos that I normally watch. You know, and it was like Relmo Fokeng. He was okay, but he was not really at his best like the past matches that he played. But hey, like I said, Orlando Pirates has to learn, or maybe they've learned after today that Mamelodi Sundowns is the standard. Mamelodi Sundowns is that team that is not dangerous. They went into this fixture as the underdogs. But until you play them, you realize how tough this Mamelodi Sundowns is. You realize how experienced this Mamelodi Sundowns is. You know, Abdel Samoudou had his tactic right, but for Miguel Cardoso, he was using experience to win a match. And oh man, this Sundowns team, they might they might really have woken up. You know, Sundowns wasn't really playing bad all along. It was that they were playing a lot of draws compared to Orlando Pirates, and they reduced the gap between them and Orlando Pirates with 3 points. Mamelodi Sundowns has a game in hand. I think this is where the league gets interesting. Normally, it will be Orlando Pirates who are under pressure, maybe. Uh, Fighting for that 3 points gap. But right now it's Mamelodi Sundowns. We are about to see an interesting league. Should have and could have Orlando Pirates won this match. It was gonna be intense for Mamelodi Sundowns to reduce that gap. But now they've made their job very, very, very easy. And another thing that we don't talk about it enough is that Orlando Pirates taking this fixture to FNB Stadium, they might have given Mamelodi Sundowns an advantage, you know, because this was a neutral venue. You know, compare if they could have taken the same way they did during the MTNA, they could have taken this match to 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 Orlando Amstel Arena, but they didn't. But hey, it is what it is. So shout out to both teams. It's a midweek game. They gave us great football. It was interesting to watch. And Jelly Chavani, you know, the referee and his assistants today, I don't think they did that well. I don't think they did that well. There was a lot of calls that were very dubious, especially for the side of Orlando Pirates. But hey, it is what it is. This match wasn't ruled by the referee. This match, Mamelodi Sundowns won it hands down. Mamelodi Sundowns beat Orlando Pirates today, hands down. Orlando Pirates played very well in the second half. They couldn't get that second goal. Mamelodi Sundowns had a great game in the first half. They got their chances. They scored 2 goals. Oh, man. And Marcelo Allende coming in also with Tembazwane so that they can maintain that game management, and it worked to Cardoso's advantage. It worked to Sundowns' advantage. The FNB Stadium wasn't really at its packed. It wasn't really packed because I will understand it's midweek. It's midweek and the game is playing at night, so a lot of people has a lot to do the following day. So that's why maybe it wasn't that packed. But yeah, we saw a great game of football. This is what South African football is all about, especially two teams fighting for the Betway Premiership right now. Like I say, right now I believe this is where the league gets interesting. The game in hand that Mamelodi Sundowns will play, will they win it? We shall see. Will they play a draw? Will they lose it? We shall see. And I want to see what will happen if these two teams are equal on points. I want to see that race. I yearn to see that race, you know. But hey, man, shout out to these teams. They played so well. They played really well. But yeah, I think Abdul Sonromadu lost this match tactically. Miguel Cardoso won this match using experience, and that's that. I'm Martin Catlejo, and this is the Offside Trap.